Hi, and welcome to another speed build. This is Plum Bob's girlfriend, aka Rachel, and you're watching part 2 of my Patterson family home build. Today I'm focusing on the living room. By the way, if you haven't seen the first part of this build series, I will link it so that you can watch it, because it gets into the whole layout and design of the house overall. And right now I'm just focusing on the living room in this video because it took me quite a while to get to a place where I was happy with it. So I thought it was kind of important to show my process here. I wanted this room to feel like a hub of activity, so you'll see that there's a desk for the kids to do their homework and a couple more activities in the room. And quite a bit of clutter in the end that I thought turned out pretty well. It's tidy but cluttered, which I think is how I grew up, so it's kind of how I wanted the house to feel. I take my sweet time trying to find couches, and in the end I don't even use the combination I begin with because I had some trouble with the decor and I wanted everything to kind of match up and still fit properly. I wanted the furniture to feel like it was collected over time, not like it was all completely matchy-matchy. I think that for a family of 4 like this, with parents who seem to have been together for a long time, it makes sense that they would still have things from when they were younger. Oh, and I do toy with the idea very briefly of having a fireplace in this house. It didn't end up fitting in the end on this room, at least. Actually, in the whole house, I shouldn't even tease that. But I really wanted it there because with seasons and kind of a Christmas theme being a possibility, I wanted to fit it in there, but it didn't work, and it's not necessary for most of the season, so I didn't really worry about it too much. And I feel like I was kind of struggling with fitting the whole Victorian theme that I have from the build of this house. So I play with a lot of different furniture throughout that have more traditional structures. Like that black and white couch that I have in there is a little bit more traditional looking than the other couch, and the tables and everything. It's kind of just an amalgam of a bunch of different personality traits that I think would fit for the family that lives here. And don't worry, I don't leave anything in the bathroom. Also, I meant to mention, I put those blinds up that are from the most recent Island Living pack because I really like that they don't darken the room too much. The whole house build is pretty dark because the spaces are kind of small and a little bit more cramped than some traditional homes are. So I didn't want to darken it anymore. Does anybody else struggle with finding rugs that fit? I feel like some of them are just the perfect style, but they size up way too much. That one worked really well though. I was actually pretty happy with the way that one looked. But I cannot remember right now if I end up staying with it. Some of the items in this room I kind of felt like might have been things that the mom and dad found at garage sales or the flea market or something, and it didn't work to fit with the other furniture necessarily, but it does work for their need. I feel like they do things based on need a lot because they are parents of 2 kids who have a baby on the way. They might not always have the most the best structure as far as like their money goes. In fact, on this house I ended up using the mother-lode sheet once, and was it just once? I can't even remember. And when I went to go take the screenshots afterward, I was looking at the family's budget, and they only had like 1,000 simoleons left, which I think makes sense. They've lived here for a long time. They have settled in and they've been collecting their stuff over time. It's not like they spent 50,000 simoleons all in one go. In my mind, this is the story that I'm telling for the family, so it just makes a little bit of sense that they would have some equity in the house, but not necessarily a lot of wealth to play with on a daily basis. So they really take advantage of the flea markets and things like that. So things don't always match, but they're functional. And I think that's an important thing. And I think that's a great way to look at families sometimes. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to function for people to be happy and to work well together. And right now I'm cluttering up the room. I do this thing a lot, and let me know if you guys do this too, because I think it's pretty interesting, where I will be cluttering one room and I'll find an object for another room that I'm like, oh yeah, I can't forget to put that in there. So like the bathroom supplies that I just put in the downstairs bathroom, they're not going to stay there, but I wanted to make sure that they're somewhere in this build, so I made sure to place them in an appropriate room, even though that's not the bathroom that they stay in. Let me know if that makes sense, and if you do the same. Like, I'll sometimes have a room dedicated to collecting clutter items for later in my build process, and I didn't do it too much in this one, just that one time, I think, but it happens a lot in other builds. Also, I try really hard not to put the move objects cheat on very early in my build process, because I want to make sure that things move, and I don't always have time to play test it before I place them in the gallery or whatever. I did, doing the walkthrough and the screenshots on this build, I was able to kind of make sure that everything is reachable in this house, so that ends up working in the end. But it's, since I don't always have that ability before I upload something that I think is really cool to the gallery, I will try to not use the move objects cheat right away, because I just don't want to risk having things overlap too much that they're not usable for you and when you're playing with these homes. I struggle with clipping sometimes. I do not pull away far enough. There we go. I love that stack of letters. I feel like that's so realistic. I have at least one of those stacks in my house right now. And that's pretty good. I think partly it's because we haven't checked the mail in a while, but when we do check the mail, you better believe that there are stacks of mail all over the place. Like what we need to shred and what we need to pay attention to, etc. I really struggled with the wallpaper in this build. I love so many kinds and felt like a bunch of them would work for this room, but I felt like the mom of the family, Nora, would be specific about the aesthetic that she likes. I love that that plant monstera leaf wallpaper that I briefly touched on, but ended up thinking like she didn't want to go through all of the trouble of redecorating every single room in the house all at once, so she'll get to this room in the end, but I feel like she has an aesthetic eye, or she has an eye for color and wants to make sure that things work together. But I ended up fixating on this tone of blue. I ended up changing it a few more times later on, though. It ends up working out. But I love the chair rail that some of those wallpapers have. I feel like they're really appropriate for this time period that I made this build to try to fit in. Or in my imagination, this house was built in the early 1900s, and I feel like that was a very popular look back then. I don't know. I think it looks cool. And I like the dark. I feel like dark wood is underused sometimes, overused other times, but in these kinds of houses I really like to play with them. I had this grand idea when I first started doing this build that I was going to be simoleon conscious. Also, I know I already said that I used the mother load sheet, but I was trying really hard to find cheap items for this room at first, because I was like, no, they're penny pinchers. They're going to they're going to save their money, and they're only going to have the 15,000 simoleons that we start out with for the entire decoration of the build. Then I realized that that's insane, because I hadn't done anything to the kitchen or any bathrooms, and I don't like skimping on the toilets and stuff, because I really don't like it when my Sims are just constantly fixing toilets in my game. So I try to use items that are a little bit more, not luxe, but items that aren't going to break on them, and those are more expensive. And then I realized, no, the few simoleons that I start with when I start decorating is not enough to finish this whole house on. So I do end up using at least the money, the mother load sheet, maybe caching a couple times, or Rosebud. I don't know. I know that Caching and Rosebud do the same thing, but I like using them both sometimes because I like typing them out. It's weird. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I wanted this family to feel like it had a history here in Willow Creek. So I've already put one picture on the wall of an old-timey looking photo, and I end up putting, I think, a couple more, or maybe just one more, because I want it to feel like either the mom or the dad was living or had family that lived in Willow Creek a long time ago, and the photos have passed down from generation to generation, or something like that, where it was just kind of historical, but historic related directly to the family, kind of ancestral or something. Let me know if that makes sense. I think that's my biggest worry, is that I'm making sense all the time when I'm talking. I'm probably not, but that's okay. Hopefully you enjoyed anyway. And here I'm trying to place a bookcase because, like I said at the beginning, I really wanted there to be a lot of activity options in this build. Also, in my last video, I mentioned that the parents are turning their office space into a nursery and eventually a bedroom for their coming child. So I wanted to put some of the things that you would find in an office down in the living room, just so that they would have those items. To me, it kind of seems like maybe all of the office type stuff that's in the living room used to be up in the bedroom, the upstairs bedroom, but they've been slowly transitioning that, so they're moving things downstairs so that the kids still have a place to do their homework and what have you. And those are the couches that I end up staying with, so yay for that, for being done with the couches finally. I wanted it to feel like the mom just finds art pieces that she likes and puts them wherever she can see them on a regular basis. So that's why I play with the art quite a bit. And also there are some key wall pieces that I just am obsessed with and reuse all the time in my builds. So that's why you'll see that. And this is another one of those old-timey photo moments that I thought was really important for the story that I've created for this family. I feel like maybe one of their parents used to be an architect or something like that, and those are original builds from one of the structures in the neighborhood or something like that. And it's hard to tell, but I'm starting to kind of get a color scheme going. The wallpaper is gonna go here in a moment. I think I fixate on the style so it works in this room, but I end up going with the lighter option because I think that it opens things up a little bit more and it works better with all of the other colors that came together. And I actually really like the way that it ended up turning out. It just took me a while to get there. I am really trying to marry the story that I've created for the house itself to the family I'm placing in it, so it takes a minute, but we end up getting there eventually. And one thing I can tell that I'm becoming more content with the room because I've started focusing on other rooms. Based on the footage I'm rewatching, I can tell that as soon as I start worrying about the wall coverings in the other rooms, I'm starting to lose focus on the living room altogether, which is how I know that the room is complete. I was thinking about how I like that the colors came together in the end and start to feel a lot more cohesive. I think that's a much better color scheme. The colors go together. They're more, what is it on the color wheel when they're next to each other? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's the living room. It's come together pretty well toward the end. If you would like to be updated when I upload a video, please ring the notification bell and follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, which will all be linked below. Thanks for watching.